Welcome back to Same Right Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this class, I'll be showing you how to sew this trendy gown with flare and bias strips, as you can see right there. So this gown is really very gorgeous. As you can see, you can use it for anything at all. In this class, I'll show you how to sew it. So if this is what you want to learn, please stay tuned to the end of. In this class, I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful dress. It's a fitted gown with slit at the back, and it has some flare effects by their side. So I'm going to show you how to beautifully make this dress. So to make this dress, I'm using an Ankara print. This is actually 6 yards of Ankara print. Ankara comes in 6 yards, and we are going to make our flare from these 6 yards, although we are not going to use all of these Ankara prints. But I will advise you get your full 6 yards. Then at the end of the day, whatever remaining, you can use it for another outfit. So I'm using my bias. I'm going to work with my bias. You can also use your work with your trimmings. All right, so to start off this tutorial, I've already folded my Ankara print. And the way Ankara comes by length of 45 to the selvage. So it's not going to be enough for a full length. So what I did is the length of 45, I folded it in the horizontal, and I'm using the other lengths. Okay, so I'll be able to have my 60 inches. I believe you understand this explanation. If I have to fold my Ankara on the length of 45, it will not be enough for this particular gown. So I folded only one, that is the front. I'm going to cut the front of this dress, then I'll place the front of this dress on the Ankara, okay, for the back, on the other part of the Ankara for the back. That's the only way we can get this to the full length. But I'm going to draft on the front, both back and front. I'm going to finish up my draftings both back and front. So before we cut, we'll place it on the back before we cut. So you are going to see what we are going to do there. So now I have my border line. That's the first thing you do. I have my border line. Next, I'll place my tape on the border line. I'm going to take my chest measurement. So you know how to go about your chest measurement. My chest is 9. And I'm going to add half an inch to it for stitching the upper part of the dress. That is the shoulder seam line. So I rule my line on the chest line. I place it back on the shoulder line. This is my chest line. Next is my waist line. My waist is 17. I'll add half an inch. I'll rule my line on it. 17.5. My hip is 29. I'll add half an inch to it, okay, for stitching allowance. And the full length of this dress is 60 inches. 60 inches, okay, so it's actually 58. My full length of my gown is actually 58, but I'm making it 60 inches because from that 60 inches I'm going to hem the down piece of this dress. So I'm making it 60 inches or 61 inches. So I will just make 61 inches. So I'll be able to hem it appropriately. So that's the line of 61 inches. So I'll rule my line on the hem line. I'll come over to my hip line. I'll rule my line on the hip line. So I want to explain the width of what I have on this fabric. The width of what I have on this fabric is starting from the center front, my hip is 50. 50 divided by 4 will give me 12.5. So this is my 12.5. I'll make a mark at 12.5. Then I'm going to add 1 inch for seam allowance. So you can see the 1 inch for seam allowance terminate at this line before the selvage. So that is how I folded it. I folded my hip because the hip is the largest circumference. So whatever is your largest circumference for your on your body, if it's your bust, if it's your hip, but for mine, my hip is the largest circumference. So I folded this fabric on the largest circumference of my hip. So hip 50 divided by 4 is 12.5. I marked it there. Plus 1 inch seam allowance is 13.5. So that is what I'm going to work for the front. So that is how I folded everything from that hip line down to the shoulder line. So I'm going to rule my line for my waistline as well. So this is my chest line, this is my front line. So on this shoulder line right now, this shoulder line, I still have it as 13.5, which is the width circumference, my hip circumference, sorry. So now we want to start up imputing our circumferences starting from the shoulder. So my shoulder is 15, divided by 2 is 7.5. So from the center front right here, I'm going to mark my 7.5. This is my 7.5. And I'm going to add half an inch for seam allowance. Half an inch for seam allowance will make it, this is 7.5. I'll add half an inch for stitching the sleeve. That is where we are going to stitch the sleeve. So these 8 inches I have here, I'll come over to the chest line. I'll transfer my 8 inches. I'll come back to this shoulder line. I'm going to come down by 1 inch. So I'm using this part of my tape because the front is not good. Then the neckline I'm going to work with. First, I'm going to construct my natural neckline. I'll use it to slant the shoulder before we curve the neckline. So I'll be using 3 inches as my natural neckline for this dress. And from that 3 inches, the shoulder for the back. Remember, I told you I will mark the back here. Mark the front on this same front. Then when we'll be transferring it to the back pattern, you see how it's going to go. So 1 inch is for the back circumference. So that is the back circumference, the back neckline. So I'm constructing the back neckline at 3 by 1. So that 3 by 1, I'm going to do what? Connect it. I've connected it. So for the front, I'm going to connect 3 inches. That is natural neckline before the real neckline. So I'll connect from that point to my, can you see? So I'm connecting from that point now. All right, so from there, the 1 inch I step down, which is the shoulder drop, I'm going to connect it then before we talk about the real neck line. Okay, so from this shoulder drop, I'm going to connect what I have on that shoulder drop to the chest line. So this is my chest line. I'll just connect it from here to here. Create my armhole for back and front here. Don't get confused about what we are doing here. I'm pretending to have my back and front right here, but the way this Ankara is, I'll just do everything as if the back is here. Then we'll place it on the next fabric and cut. All right, so now I'm going to find the midpoint. So the midpoint of what I have on the shoulder seam, this is it. So I'm going to construct the back armhole. So I'll come in by half an inch for the back armhole. That one is the first I'm going to construct. Then later I'll construct the front armhole. So that's the back armhole. I'm going to make my chest line. So my bust is 10 inches. I'm going to add half an inch for ease on the bust, because that dress has an ease on the bust, that is 10.5. Then I'll add 1 inch for my stitching allowance, so I have everything as 11.5. So now I'm going to do what? Connect from that half an inch for back neckline. I'm connecting it to the chest line, as you can see. All right, so that is done. I'll come back to that midline, and I'm going to take my front armhole. My front armhole is 0.75 inwards, so this is it. I'll go ahead and connect it back to the shoulder seam line. Once that is done, I'll take it back to the chest line. Can you see? So when we are cutting it, you are going to see everything clearer. So now that we have gotten the armhole, now we want to talk about the neckline. So if you look at that neckline, you actually see that that neckline is a little bit deeper at the front, okay? And the back, like I said, I'll also construct it here. So from here, I want you, the way I'm going to take this neckline, I'm not going to tell you to go 4x4 or 3x3, no. So whatever you have on your dress, from the tip of the shoulder, on your measurements, from the tip of your shoulder, just simply come in by 2.5. Simply come in by 2.5. So once we have gotten the 2.5, next, for the front neckline, I actually want the front neckline to go a little deeper at 2.5 too. So from here, I'll increase this neckline now to, okay, let me do 2 inches. So by the time we sew it, we'll have the allowance. So the back is 2 inches. That is the back. And from the tip of this, okay, I will make it 3 inches. The reason I'm making it 3 inches because we'll still sew from it. If I'm working on paper now, I will do it 2.5. But since we are working directly on fabric, I will do 3 inches. So please make sure you have yours as 3 inches. So I'm going to connect first these 3 inches from here. I'm going to connect it for the back to the 2 inches. So I'll just place my pattern ruler and see how I can get a good curve. So if you cannot actually get a good curve, simply don't bother yourself. Use your free hand to form the curve. So here I think I got a good curve. So that is the back curve. So I'm going to make the front neckline. So the front neckline right now, normally this is the 3 inches front neckline. So from that 3 inches, I'll just step down by 2 more inches. I'll step down by 2 more inches for the neckline. Then these 2 more inches, I will connect it from these 3 inches. You can see how I'm connecting it, because that part is actually deep. Okay, let me just do 1.5, okay, from this neckline, because we are going to sew it. So from here I did 1.5, so it doesn't open too much, okay. So that is to say, from this shoulder line for the front depth, from the shoulder line from the front depth is 4.5 by width. And I wouldn't want to take use this for you, because shoulders are not the same. Okay, this particular dress is 3 inches from the outer shoulder to this. Then you now connect to your 4.5, and then connect to your 2 inches. Okay, so the depth is 2 inches for back, depth is for front is 4.5. Then you come in by 3 inches and connect. So that's just the explanation. There's not too much thing right there. So by the time we cut it, you see how the neckline runs. All right, beautiful people, so we are done with the neckline, and we want to go over to what we have on the waistline. Waist, I'm working with waist 40 divided by 4 is 10. I'll add half an inch for ease. Make sure you add your ease. There's an ease to this dress, it's not that fitted. So I added half an inch for ease, and I added 1 inch for seam allowance. So I just simply come in with my ruler and connect from my seam allowance to the hip. You can see me connecting from the seam allowance to the hip, to the waist. Then I'll come over to the waist. You know I've already taken my waist already, but I didn't add an ease to it. So I'll just add my ease of half an inch, and that ease terminates at this point. So I'll place my pattern ruler from the hip, from the waist to the hip. Can you see? From the waist to the hip. Then I will take it straight. It's already on the selvage, so I'll just take it straight till I get to that point. So I'm going to cut out the sides only. Note that we are going to place this front to the back right now. So I'm not touching the neckline. I'm only touching the sides of this dress. So for the side of this dress, I'll come from here. I'm not touching the armhole. I'll come from here. So before you cut, ensure that you have added your seam allowances appropriately. So I'm checking it again. My bust is 10 plus half an inch and seam allowance. So I'm good to cut. So I just cut the sides now. So we'll be able to use this to place on the dress. So I'll just take this part straight. So once I get to the full length, I'll just do what? Cut out the full length. Can you see? So this is what we have. You can see the shape, but I didn't touch here. So we are going to place this on top of the back piece now and cut everything together. Alright, so I just want to quickly show you how I folded the back. You can see this is the part we cut out the Ankara from. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and do this. This is the length. You can see where I cut out the length. So I'll just simply fold this remaining piece. Fold this remaining piece on the length. So it gives me the actual length before I place my they already cut the front part. Okay. All right, so now I've ensured that I folded it from the part I cut, so I'll be able to get the desired length. Okay, so now this part is going to be my center back, and that is where the zipper is going to be. So you can see we have them two separate parts. So I'm going to come in with the dress right now. So I'll just place it in this manner, so I'll still see what's my chalk marks. So I just inverted it so it will be on the hem parts. Okay, so I'll be able to see this chalk line. So I'll just go ahead and place my Ankara. So I'm placing it from here to here. So I'll have my zipper allowance. Okay, so you just arrange it very well so you have your zipper allowance. So if you're on a bigger size, then you can now know how to fold the Ankara. So that's why I encourage you to have the full 6 yards of Ankara. Anything that is remaining, you can use it to do any other thing of your choice. So I just want to keep it on this line. You know, I have another color right here. So I just want my zipper to start from this color so it doesn't interfere with what I have on the back. So I'll just pin it now, making sure I arrange it before I cut. So I just have to cut out the selvage part of this, and I just want to make use of the whole of this. Okay, the whole of this from here to here. So actually what I have here is 1.5, and I'm using that 1.5 like that as my zipper allowance, because I'm going to weave this part. By the time I weave, I'll have about one inch. So when sewing my zipper and my slit, I'm going to use this line as my guideline. Okay, so that's how I really actually want it. So now I'm going to start cutting, and I'm going to cut this dress right now, starting from this part, which is the neck line. So also ensure that what you have on this hip line, you can see I still have some fabric here that matches up with the hip line. So please don't make sure you fold it appropriately so you have your back as well. So I want to cut the back now. So for the back cutting, I'm going to first I'm cutting my back first. Remember, we drafted back and front, so you actually need to be careful when cutting, since we drafted back and front right here. So instead of redrafting on the back after folding, just simply come here and do this. I've cut out the back. Then the next I will do is to come over to our neckline of 3 inches. This is the neckline of 3 by 2 for the back. Okay, I'll cut it all the way to the zipper. Can you see? I cut it all the way to the zipper. So now we are done with this back. So next is to go over to the side. Okay, so we'll go over to the side. So make sure you secure this with your pin. So I'm cutting the sides right now. I'll cut it all the way. Alright, so we are done. Alright people, so now you can see we have the back and the front. So don't forget to do what? Cut out your shoulder seam line. You remember the shoulder slope. The shoulder slope for the both of them are the same. So I'll just go ahead and cut it. Can you see? So I've cut it out, as you can see. So don't forget that. So there's another thing I want to talk about, the knee line. You know, this is somehow penciled. Okay, so if you are working with it this way, it means it's straight. But this dress is not actually straight. There's a little pencil effect to it. So this is my hip, and I'll go over to my knee. My knee is 41. To get this pencil effect, you go up by 1, 2, 3. This is where the position of my knee is, but I'll go up by 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. I love to work on the 4th inch. So this is my knee position right now. So this knee position, I will take off 1 inch or 1.5 from here. I'll just come in from here and do what? Take off 1.5. So I'll come over to the hem. I'll take off 1.5. So I'll connect from that hem. So what I'm doing here is to give it a little pencil effect. So to the knee. Then I'll connect it back to the waistline, to the hip line this way. Can you see? So make sure you don't give it a sharp edge. So from the knee, from the hem, I'm going to do what? Take off 1.5, and that will serve as the pencil effect. So if you don't want to give it a pencil shape, you can just please leave it the way it is. But I think this pencil effect will make it look much better. So you can see what we have right here. This is the boot, and it's showing itself right there. So it's going to make the dress a little bit lovely. So note that from here we came out by 3. So I will advise you to, okay, by 3.5. Okay, so by the time we sew half an inch on both sides, we'll have 2.5. Okay, All right, so people, we are done. So I'm going to take off what I have on the front because we are on the back. We are done. So next is to raise this up and cut the front neck line. So the front neckline and the armhole, I'm going to cut them out separately. Please don't touch this part. I'm only cutting what I have right here. Right from here, I'll go over to that front neck. Can you see? So this is it. You can see the difference between front and back. Then coming over to the armhole, I'll still raise the front up. And from here, I'll follow the armhole for the front, which is deeper than the armhole for the back. And I'll do what? Cut it to the shoulder line. So just make sure you cut it very, very well. I'll just cut it. So you see that difference, just a little difference of 0.25. So we are done. Next is to start joining. So after we are done joining right now, I'm going to show you how to sew. We are going to sew that flare effect first. So that flare effect is going to start from our knee position. So this is the upper, my knee, this is my hip at 29, and my knee is 41. So shoulder to knee is 41. So for both front and back is going to be 41 times 2. So take note that the knee position is 41. By the time we get there, I'll show you how to cut the flare. So now I want to cut out my basic sleeve. Okay, of course you know how to cut out your basic sleeve. We have a detailed video on this channel on how to draft a basic sleeve, so you can just use that basic sleeve to sew this dress. Okay, so I'm just cutting it out right now, as you can see right away. So after cutting the sleeve, we want to cut our, before we start sewing, we are going to cut the facing. Okay, so for your facing, of course you know how to cut out the facing. So I'm cutting out my facing right now. Okay, so if you have been following us on this channel, this is just the way we cut our facing right here. You can check out other videos on how I cut my facing. So now I'm cutting my facing, as you can see right away. So after that, I'm marking out the part I'm going to sew my bias. So I marked 1 inch from the neckline and 0.75 from that point to the other. Now I'm done with the bias, so you can see how I stitched it. I have to double stitch it as I placed it earlier. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place my facing. So I'm going to stitch my facing right now at 0.5 top stitch and turn it to the right side. Right, so now I'm done with the facing and I have to notch and top stitch. As you can see, my top stitch is right there. So the next thing we want to do now is to go over to the back. So I'm going to sew the back right now. This is the back pattern. So this back pattern you are seeing right here, I'm going to add a zipper to it. So I'll add my zipper to it. So this is the length of my zipper. So I'm going to take the measurement of what I have from here, 0.5 inch, because I'll have to sew the neckline. So what I'm going to do now is to sew in my facing first. Okay, so you sew your facing first and then top stitch your facing for the back. So once I'm done with that, then we'll sew the zipper to it and our slit. So I'll just go over and sew right now. So now I'm done with the facing for the back, as you can see, and I did it for both of them, the facing. So here we'll be having our zipper and then we'll have our slit. So I want to talk about the slits. I'll be using one to show you where your slit is going to be. This is our the knee position we stepped up. If you remember, we stepped up at this point. So I'll just take the knee position, and then I'll come down for my slits. I'm going to come down from where I mark now is my exact knee. So I'll just go up by 2 inches for my slits, or 1.5. Let me do 1.5 because I don't want it to be too open. So I'm going to make a notch at this point. That is where I'm going to have the opening of my slit. Okay, it has to be above your knee, so you'll be able to walk very well. So then, coming over to the zipper, I'll place my zipper at the point of our top stitch. So this iron part has to be at that point before you take your measurement of your zipper. So this is the length of my zip. So I'll just step up at about 1/2 or 1 inch, then I'll mark. So I'll also make a notch at that point. So where I'm going to sew now, I'm sewing from this notch to this notch. That is the only part I'm going to sew now. So by the time I lay and arrange my back, I just arrange my back very well. Now I've pinned from the part I have my notches. You can see my notches, and I have arranged it very well. So I'll just sew on top of the, remember I told you I was going to follow this guideline, okay, for my zipper. So I'll sew right here now. So I've stitched the center back, leaving the zipper with the zipper, and I have my slits. So the next thing is to fuse front and back together. So we are going to place our front and back dress together. So, and I'm going to sew the seam line. So I always like to sew my seam line this way, especially with the one that have the facing. So once I place it here, or let me use this one, anyone, you can use anyone to do what I'm doing. So if you place this and this together, you lift one of it up this way, can you see, and then sew at 1/2 inch. You sew everything at 1/2 inch. Let me do that for the both sides. So I'm done sewing the shoulder line now. So I'm marking out the line at which I'm going to sew the flare. So I'm going to sew the flare on the lines I'm marking now. Alright people, so it's time for us to cut out the flare. And before we cut out the flare, which we are going to have from the shoulder to the knee for front and back, we are going to have a little calculation. So from my shoulder to my knee measurement, I have 41. To my actual knee is 41. Then you know the flare is going to run from shoulder to knee for front and shoulder to knee for back. So this 41 will be multiplied by 2, and I have 82. So because we are cutting 180 degrees, so for 180 degrees we usually use 3.14 according to our calculation. So 82 I'm going to divide by 3.14, and I have 26 inches. So our radius now is 26 inches. So these 26 inches, I'll come in with my fabric Ankara now. So the way it is now, we are going to make do of all the Ankara prints. Ankara comes at 6 inches. So you can see we are making do of all the Ankara print. So this is the selvage. For 180 degrees, simply do what? Fold it only once. We are folding only one time. So I folded only one time now. So as I'm folding, I have to take note of my radius and the length of my flare. So I folded it, and you can see what I have right there. So I'll arrange it very appropriately. Then I'll start measuring my radius. So my radius, I'll take it from here. to form the flare. So from here, I'm going to measure from here to my radius at 26. This is 26. I'll come back here again. You can see where I'm placing it. I'll place it here once again. I'll bring it back. I'll mark another 26 and connect that 26 to the 26 I have here. I'll still allow my tape to be there. I will move to another position. This is the position 26. I will connect. I'll come back here. I'll hold it on here. I'll move to another 26 like that. This is what I'll keep doing till I do what? I form that radius of the flare. So this is the radius of the flare. From here, I'll now finally come down to the end of the folded part. So if you want to know if what you have done is correct, where you are going to sew it will match up with the 41, simply place your tape here, which is going to serve as the shoulder line, because we are going to place a notch at this folded part. That will be where we'll drop this flare, at the shoulder. So now I'll measure what I have on this radius I've marked to see if it will give me 41 inches. So you can see I'm measuring it. I'm taking it, coming back to that part. Can you see I have 41 on dots? Can you see? So that shows that once you sew this from shoulder to the knee line, you have that flare exactly on that point. So we will now measure our flare length. So the flare length now, I'm going to make use of the length of 7 inches. So why I'm making use of 7 inches is because we are going to sew up and down. In fact, let us use 8 inches. So by the time we sew the upper part, then we can now sew half an inch for the upper part, then fold in 1 inch. We'll now have 6.5 as our flare remaining. So it depends on how big you want the flare to be. So it's better you have an excess. If you have an excess, you can cut it off. That is what I always encourage. So we'll use 8 inches instead of using less. So this is my 8 inches. So you can see how I'm marking this 8 inches. So I'm just taking my time to, teach you how to sew this dress, because I know it's trending and most of you have posted this on the Telegram class, on the WhatsApp class to be taught. So I need to teach you to understand. So from here, I've marked out the width of the flare. You can see that. So the next thing now is to cut what I have. Then we'll now shaping the flare. So whatever we have here, which I'm cutting now, remember we have 2 times of it. So I'll just carry it and duplicate it on the other part of the Ankara. So I'll just cut on the flare now. Then once I've cut out that part, I'll come over to the 8 inches length we just marked now. Can you see? So this is what we are going to attach on that length. Can you see? That's what is going to serve as our flare. So this flare that we have formed right now, this flare we have formed, the first thing we want to do on it is to place a notch on the folded part. So I've placed a notch on the folded part. That will be the shoulder line. So when I'm sewing it, we are going to finish it up with our bias. So don't worry about it. So I will now come over to the flare part, and I'm going to, if you look at that flare, you can see it's pointing. So it's actually pointing. So I'll just use my discretion now. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to point it from that point, from this point. Just shaping the flare this way. Can you see? So I'm shaping the flare now. So all I'm going to do, can you see? So we have shaping it. So by the time we sew this flare straight on the dress like that, we have that effect we have right there. Okay, so I'll place this, the whole of this now, on an ankara, another ankara, and sew and cut. All right, so after cutting the flare, so this is what you will have when you cut the flare. Can you see? And this is the part I know. So the way it is now, I'm going to place it on my fabric. So for you to economize this fabric and have a good result, I'm laying this fabric only one single piece. So I'm going to cut and join what I got on the shoulder line. So I'm cutting and joining what I have here on the shoulder line this way. So I just place it to accommodate the whole of half of it, because the two of it will not be able to be accommodated. So I'll add half an inch to join the other one. Can you see? So I'll just quickly cut it out now. So you can see I added half an inch to sew the other one I'm going to cut. So I'll take off this one now, and I'll place it on top of this and cut. I'll place it. So you can see we've already exhausted the whole of the 6 yards. So I'll just place it somewhere here. Okay, so I just want to economize my fabric. So I'll place it somewhere here. Then I'll cut it out. You can see how I placed it. This part facing this part. Okay, so by the time we join, it matches up accordingly. So now you can see I'm done cutting the both of them. So I'll just go ahead and sew them right side to right side. Okay, so I'll have my stitches on this part, and that will serve as the other part of my flare. So now we are going to sew it into the bodice right away. All right, so this is I've sewn this and opened it up, okay, because the fabric was not enough, so I have to sew it on the shoulder line. I have to join it on the shoulder line. So this is what I have after joining for one of our flares, and this is the next one. So the next thing we want to do now, this one will be on the right, this will be on the left. So the next thing we are going to do is to sew the outer part of this, that's trim it using our bias. Okay, so I'm going to use my bias now on the outer edge to finish it up. So this is how I'm going to sew my bias. I'm going to place it this way, open it up. This one I'm going to open up and sew. By the time I'm done sewing, I'll now use it and do what? And finish it up. So I will do that neatly for both of them. All right, so now I'm done finishing. I've finished with the bias. Can you see that? So I have to turn it with the bias, as you can see, and I've given it a good press. So I also folded or hemmed this part, okay, so it does not frill before I sew it into the dress. So I'll pick up one of these, then I'm going to bring in the dress. This is how I'll sew the dress, the flare into the dress. So the way I opened it now, I've already marked my lines. So if you look well, you can see all those lines I made from my notch, which is the knee line. So I'll bring in this and I'm going to start sewing it. So I'll first of all pin it this way because that's how I'm going to sew. I'll sew on top of the hem and it goes this way for me. So what I will do is to, at this point of my knee line where I will start, I'll just hold it down with my pin. Then I will take it to the where I have my shoulder line. I just made a crease line, okay, so I'll be able to know my shoulder line. So I'll go ahead and also pin it on the shoulder line. So I will now keep sewing. Since I've pinned them, I'll place it this way. I'll sew from the beginning, okay. I'm sewing this way, sorry, I'm sewing this way. Take note of how I'm sewing it in. So I'm going to sew from here right now. So by the time I'm done sewing, it goes this way and gives us a neat finishing. So you can also weave this part before you sew, so however you want to do it, but I just thought of, you know, hemming it before I sew. So let me do that now. So now I'm done joining or sewing it right now. So this is the seam allowance, that's the seam line or the side seam. So I'll just go ahead and close it up. I'll go ahead and close my side seam. This is where I'm going to have my sleeve. So I'm closing it up at 1 inch, which is what I added. So I'll just sew 1 inch on both sides now. I'm done sewing my sleeves. As you can see, the sleeve is right there under the flare, as you can see. So it's actually looking fine and beautiful. I also did the same for this as well. You can see the sleeve right there. So that is how to go about the sewing of this beautiful dress. So thank you very much for coming to this tutorial once again. If you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comment on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thanks once again for coming. See you in the next class. Bye.